Entrepreneur Andrew Yang is the first Taiwanese American to run for U.S. president, and he's the ninth person to qualify for the third round of Democratic debates. His support is growing, and he's bringing a lot of innovative ideas to the table, such as universal basic income. That means an income of $1,000 a month for every American over 18. So could these ideas work in Taiwan? Well, today I have with me the head of the Yang Gang in Taiwan, Peter Wang, and also Tyler Prochazka, who's the head of Universal Basic Income in Taiwan. It's great to have you guys on the show.
Nice to be here.
Well, thanks for having us, Natalie.
Yeah, so it's an exciting time to be part of the Yang Gang, right? He just qualified for the most recent debates, the next debates. Tell me, what do you think is his most innovative idea that he's bringing to the table?
His flagship program is the Freedom Dividend, which it's UBI, but he calls it the Freedom Dividend. And as you said, it's $1,000 per month for every American citizen. And he's running on this campaign of the Freedom Dividend, and he's really trying to bring this to the forefront because the American society has been ripped apart from automation, and a lot of people don't see that. You see a lot of scapegoating. You look at the rise of Donald Trump. You look at the fabric of the United States, which once was strongly middle class, and that middle class has pretty much been gutted. And so this is what we believe is the rise of, how would I put this, a cult of personality. And so the UBI is to help alleviate some of the issues that are coming up with automation.
That makes sense. Artificial intelligence, he's been saying is going to take over about 20% of the jobs. Now, what about this idea? Is it going to be happening all around the world as well?
That's interesting. For me, my focus is on with the U.S. and Andrew Yang, and I believe that if he is elected president, UBI will become much more mainstream, and it's something that could catch on globally. You look at a lot of the tech leaders in the world. A lot of them have talked about how automation will displace a lot of workers, and I think this is something that will catch on internationally. And I think that Taiwan is definitely a possibility if you look at the way Taiwan society once went from a manufacturing to now a more service economy. The middle class here, I think, has been gutted also.
Well, Tyler, you are promoting a universal basic income for Taiwan. Tell me what you're doing here and how you're promoting it.
So in Taiwan, we focus on stagnant wages, particularly for young people in Taiwan. And we think that a lot of that is due to the fact of automation. In Asia in particular, there was a study from MIT that predicted over 51% of jobs in Asia could be displaced by automation.
Really?
And even Foxconn, the Taiwanese company, they want to automate 70% of their manufacturing jobs away. So the trend is already happening. Taiwan has the 6th highest density of robots in the world, so we know that there are companies here that are attempting to automate their jobs away. And what does that mean for the average worker in Taiwan? In the past 20 years, wages, as we all know, have been stagnant while the GDP continues to grow. So where does that money go? It goes to the people that own the robots. So it's not just a United States issue, it is a global issue, and it's an issue here in Taiwan as well.
So do you know if the Taiwan government is considering this at all as an issue to be dealt with, and are they considering UBI as a solution?
So a few years ago, the National Development Council in Taiwan did produce a study that was discussing universal basic income and negative income taxes, which are similar. But in a discussion with the former premier of Taiwan, a youth council that Tsai Ing-wen created, they offered the idea of doing a pilot program in Taiwan, and the premier at the time said he would be worried about things like using the money on gambling or using the money on video games for young people. So there is this pushback towards the idea of basic income that it could be used in abusive ways. So we have had these discussions, we've had people in government, and we've met with some legislators, but there is a cultural issue in Taiwan about this idea of so-called free money.
That makes sense. People think it will make you lazy, right? Yeah. Well, what is the evidence that it could work for society as a whole?
There have been some studies. The one that I've seen most frequently used is in Canada. There was a city called Dauphin in Manitoba, and they gave everybody UBI. And what they found is the two classifications that worked less were single moms or stay-at-home moms and students. And they found that most people still worked because the incentive is in the 1,000 per month is to get you to the point of about the poverty level. So if you're comfortable with that kind of minimal existence, you don't have to work. But the incentive is to continue to work, where the current welfare system in the United States is once you're on disability or some sort of government assistance, if you make over a certain amount of money, you lose those benefits. So it's a disincentive to actually do work, where a UBI would incentivize more work and a better lifestyle from that.
And how plausible is it to have the money to fund this kind of program, whether in the U.S. or Taiwan?
You might want to start on.
So, well, in Taiwan in particular, we can, I think, cover United States in a second. But in Taiwan, we look at things like pollution taxes or carbon taxes. And in Taiwan, we do have one of the lowest tax ratio burdens in the world. It's very low taxes in general. So that's a blessing and a curse, because on the one hand, you have a lot of room to grow taxation. On the other hand, clearly Taiwan has some political and cultural pushback to taxation. So how do we convince people? I think it is using the idea of its compensation. When you pollute the air, when you use water, when you pollute water, or when you use natural resources, that's the domain of all Taiwanese people. So there should be some compensation back. And when you phrase it like that, you do get a lot more support for something like UBI funded by pollution taxes or carbon taxes.
And what kind of income are you thinking about for people in Taiwan?
We studied 10,000 NT to 12,000 NT for adults and half that for young people. And if you incorporate the taxation that would be along with that program, it would be about 4% of Taiwan's GDP. After you claw back from wealthier people or polluters, they would pay back a portion of their income through that basic income through taxes.
So how open do you think that people are to this idea now in the U.S.?
Well, I guess we'll find out through Andrew Yang, because nobody else is talking about it. Andrew Yang is the only person that's talking about UBI in the freedom dividend in the United States among all the Democratic and Republican presidential candidates.
Yeah, it's a very innovative idea, and Elon Musk even came out this past week to show his support for the idea and for Yang. Why do you support Yang?
I saw Yang in February on the Joe Rogan podcast. I was on YouTube and I was like, who's this Asian guy on Joe Rogan? And so I listened to him, and after 2 hours, I was just like, wow, this guy gets it. I mean, in terms of his understanding, his intelligence, and looking at the dysfunction in the U.S. government. I've never voted because I've been kind of disgusted by the way the U.S. government and the U.S. Political system has been run. And so for me, I would be considered one of the, I guess, politically disenfranchised. But when I listened to Andrew, I was like, wow, he really gets it. And I would hope to believe that it would go beyond just racial identity, that, he's intelligent and, he has policies that would actually help the vast majority of American people. There's obviously that identity component. The more research I did about him, the more I found out that I actually had friends that knew him.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he does have a connection with Taiwan. Both his parents are from Taiwan. I was actually able to meet his father here.
Oh, really?
He's retired in Taiwan. And, so there's that identity component. I think that his campaign is he's not a politician. I believe him when he says that he never really wanted to be president. He just wants to go in, make the country better, fix it, and then get out. And when I look at career politicians, I generally don't care for them too much. So I felt like his campaign was, he was an outsider. He's intelligent. He's smart. He would put solutions that would actually make the world, the United States better.
So that's why you're head of the Yang Gang here.
Yeah,
you can go on and on and talk about him all day, right?
Right. I set up his volunteer group. I was the first in Asia to do so, just basically off a two-hour interview. I was just so impressed with him from
Yeah,
that.
he's a very impressive person. I mean, I think just listening to his ideas, and they're very innovative. But he's a big outsider, right? He's an entrepreneur.
Right.
But it's interesting to see how his support is growing.
Absolutely.
And
He's very smart about how he's running his campaign. He's been focused on the internet. He really wants to do well in the primary states. I mean, you just look at the logic of what he's doing and how he's running his campaign. And, some people will say he's like, he's gaming the system. But, the system is set up so that, he understands where he can get the most value. He's not the largest fundraiser, but I think he's probably one of the most effective users of his funds that he's raised. And this is a completely grassroots campaign, no corporate money. It's really power to the people.
so how optimistic are you that he will win the primary?
I know he's a long shot, but if you look at some of the, I would probably put the most emphasis on like the gaming sites, the gambling sites, on what they look at
Oh,
in terms of
really?
probabilities.
They're really professional.
Yeah,
they
well,
do this for money,
I wouldn't say
right?
they're professional, but if you look at like sports gambling and you look at some of the analytics that they put into it, I mean, they're very sophisticated.
I'm sure they are. I mean,
Yeah.
they have to make money off of this.
Right.
So what is the most recent, prediction for him? What is his?
Right now he's in the polls. He qualified for the third and fourth debates in September and October in the fall debates. So I mean that's obviously huge. I think the more exposure he gets, he's definitely getting a lot more mainstream media exposure. For a
Right.
long time he was kind of like mocked as like an outsider that had no chance. But people are definitely paying attention to him now, and I mean it's amazing what he's doing. And in the second, if you get a chance to see the second round Democratic primary debates, I mean he was amazing. He
was a very
job.
skillful speaker.
Right.
He got his message on very clear.
Right.
And he even said, "Here we are, all in makeup, and just what are we doing here?
It's a reality TV show.
Yeah, are we
Yeah.
really offering solutions to the American people? I mean,
Right.
something to that effect, right?" And I think he got people's attention that way.
Yeah.
And he's trying to find solutions. And one of them is UBI. I mean, UBI for Taiwan, I've never even heard of the idea being proposed here. So what do you think? Is this a big long shot, or do you think that it could happen someday in Taiwan?
I think the key is having someone like Andrew Yang in a Taiwan context. If, Terry Go was going out and promoting UBI, I think it would create a lot of discussion on both sides, but we don't have that. And the politicians that we meet with, they don't really want to be the first one. So you have to kind of have an outsider like Andrew Yang that can push this idea and make it credible, and they have to have some credibility behind them. In the United States, we have a lot of examples like Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg talked about it, even Barack Obama talked about it after he was out of office. But Taiwan, that just hasn't happened yet. So we're behind the scenes trying to push them and push them out front to be the first one. That way we can start that conversation and get a mainstream discussion started.
So how much does the conversation in the U.S. affect the conversation in Taiwan? Because it is on the table now with Andrew Yang.
Yeah.
Do you think people in Taiwan are paying attention at all?
At least from what we see, it's really revved us up. We've gotten a lot of people that come to us because they saw Andrew Yang in Taiwan media. So that connection, because he happens to be Taiwanese American, has really helped us in our promotion. One of our biggest posts was talking about Andrew Yang and his connection with Taiwan and the UBI dividend. So if he's successful in America, I really think it's going to be helpful to us here, because Taiwanese people do look at what America's doing and they say, well, America's not doing this, so why should Taiwan? So if we get this as a serious discussion in the United States, I certainly think it's going to be a discussion here.
And what do you think it would do for Taiwan society to have a UBI, let's say 10,000, 12,000 for adults?
Yeah.
NT dollars.
So, yeah. I mean, for Taiwanese young people in particular, I think that they are overworked. And if we look at the statistics, there are dozens of people every year that are dying from overwork in Taiwanese society. It's not an issue of laziness in Taiwan. That's not the issue.
That's
Taiwan
true.
is one of the most overworked societies in the world. And I'm just really skeptical that you give them $10,000, they're just going to stop working. The reality is they're going to start breathing and they're going to start thinking about what's best for themselves. I want young people to do a job because they're passionate about it, because they love to do it, and ultimately that's going to be what's good for Taiwan's economy in the long run, because we don't need more mindless workers. We need people to think creatively and innovative about the future, and if they're working out of their minds and completely tired and unmotivated at work, you're not going to have an economy for the next generation.
Well, it's great work that you're doing here, Tyler. I hope that your ideas can spread to the government and that you can help Taiwan society. Thanks. And Peter, thanks for being heading the Yang Gang here. Good luck.
Well, thank you for having us. If you're interested, we have a Facebook page, the Taipei Yang Gang, and we also have an email address, which is the taipeiyangang@gmail.com. But we're excited to see Andrew Yang. I think he's got the right ideas. I think he's got the right kind of personality. I think he's really electrifying his base, and I think he'll go far.
He's definitely a person to watch. Very exciting.
Yeah.
So I've been speaking with Peter Wang, the head of the Yang Gang in Taiwan. That's the gang that supports Andrew Yang for president. He's the first Taiwanese American to run for president. I've also been speaking with Tyler Prochazka. He's the head of the UBI, or Universal Basic Income, in Taiwan, bringing a lot of great ideas to Taiwan. Thanks for joining me.